Hey everyone, Stegar here, and welcome back to Fairview. In last week's episode, we were working on a power station and a small industrial area on the edge of the city. And in this week's episode, we're going to change things up a bit and start working on some suburban areas along the side of the railway line. I also extend the power lines from the power station off camera to cut through this area, and they kind of get in the way and we have to work around them. But I think it creates a really cool area. So let's get into the time lapse where I'll start building out the roads. So here I was building a road that will act as a bypass to the city's downtown. We're getting quite a bit of traffic in the downtown now, so I thought it'd be good to add a bypass into the city. There is already one hidden off camera, but I need to replace that with a more permanent alternative, I guess, and making a bridge over the railway line too, to have it not interfere with traffic too much, and just leaving a little stump there from when the road didn't have a bridge and it was just a level crossing, and just bits are left behind and stuff. This bridge is a bit unusual as it kind of goes under the power lines and slips in between spaces and then turns around over top of the other road, but it works, and I was just adding in the other road to connect on the other side of the area that we're going to work on today. And now actually working on one of the roads where we're going to build houses along today. And you can see the power lines now running along there, and they will kind of get in the way of what we're building today, but everything will be alright. And here I'm just connecting up this other road that goes right through to the industrial area that we built in the last episode. And I was going to go for a level crossing at this railway, but I decided to go for a bridge instead because it was already at a decent elevation, and I felt like we wouldn't really need to spend much more to build a bridge as opposed to cutting into some of the land and building a level crossing. And it also future-proofs the area a bit in case in the future there is more traffic, and at that stage we would need to separate out the road from the railway line. And here I was just building another road too that kind of connects up to the bypass, and making a T-intersection that's curved so that the main road continues along and the side road is at an intersection, even though it kind of goes straight on from that curve. And just upgrading this bit to an avenue and making it a bit wider where the traffic would be a bit heavier due to having houses and things coming off there. And here I've started on building the houses for today. And these are kind of tucked away under these power lines, and I'm also putting in some back sections too, and using this small street from Network Extensions 2 to connect the houses up to the road network so that they can actually function in game and provide us with more population in the city. I used Building Anarchy on a few of these houses too to stop them from flattening the terrain, as I want to put a retaining wall that is terrain conforming alongside the railway lines, and in order for that to look alright, I needed the land to not be flattened to the height of the houses, as it's kind of too close to the edge and it causes some problems. I didn't quite get that right, as you'll see in the cinematics, as I forgot to do it on a few houses, but for the most part it seems alright. And just putting these fences around the houses too to mark off their property boundaries, and you can see here that I'm putting down these retaining walls, and there's little bumps and things from a few of the houses where I've forgotten to use Building Anarchy to disable the terrain flattening. And just going right along here where there's the cliff, as it is a relatively developed area and there wouldn't necessarily be exposed cliff face in the city. Maybe more in the countryside, but not so much in the city. And here I was just fencing off this little bit of exposed cliff and covering it up with some trees to hide it, as I didn't want it in anyone's backyard. And also placing some trees down in the backyards too. I was being careful to make them not too high, but high enough that they still had some bushiness to them, but not high enough that they were touching the power lines, because that would not result in anything good. And starting on the next section in between the power lines, you can see here that I've now taken the power lines out for the time being to make it easier to work with. My inspiration for this area was a place in Christchurch that I sometimes go through on the bus. This area has the power lines going over a sports field as well as some houses, and there's some trees as well in there that make it look all complicated. I think the trees in real life are a lot shorter than the ones I'm using in Fairview, but I'm kind of limited by the tree sizes in this game, as some are quite big and some are really small, and there's not much in between, and sometimes they spawn bigger and smaller and stuff, and you've got to work with what you've got, I guess. Anyways, getting back into what's going on the screen, I'm placing down some network fences around these houses. I'm just using the vanilla network fences from either Park Life or from the Industries DLC, and just placing them around, and only using the fences that have no gaps in between so that people can get their privacy in their backyards and things and no one can see through, and just still connecting that up, and kind of a bit of rinse and repeat sort of thing, just putting in more trees and more houses and stuff. I have been meaning to talk about this for the last few episodes, but haven't got around to it, and that is the intro. I want to know what you think of it, whether it's too fast or if you think it's good, because I just want you to get a glimpse of kind of what the city is all about before you start watching the episode. It's probably not the right time to talk about this now. I probably should have mentioned it at the start of the episode, but I am mentioning it now anyway, and I just wanted to know what you all think about it, because I quite like it. I think it just kind of gives you a good idea of what the city is all about, and that's all I have to say. And I also started doing the little thing after the intro explaining what's going on in the city today and in the episodes and stuff, and I also want to see what you think about that. It seems to be working okay from the statistics that I can see, but I'd really love to hear your opinion, and if you want to say anything else, then go ahead. As long as it's not too rude, I should be okay. And here we're just finishing off this last area under the power lines and putting some fences around it all. Again, as I said before, this is a little bit repetitive, but I don't want to cut too much out. I mean, I have cut still quite a bit out of this episode, as I would have had enough to make a 40-minute episode, but it's only about 20 or 21 minutes long or something. I haven't worked that out yet, because I might add something in later on that changes the length of it again. But just putting in more trees and stuff. And I usually do want to keep the episodes under 20 minutes, but if they go over, it's not too much of a problem, just as long as it's not like an actual 40-minute episode, because they can be a bit of a drag to watch unless you like watching a recorded live stream or something of one of your favourite creators. And I very much doubt that I'm someone's favourite creator, but it'd be interesting to know. And just now putting down some shops and things, and getting out of going on some random rant, and putting down this ploppable pavement too, to fix up the fact that this is not flat and that we need a flat area to build a gas station on, and using a vanilla shop to just kind of fill in the area, and some other shops from the University City Content Creator Pack. I quite like using these ones, as they just look really kind of, I don't really know what the word is, but I do like them, and just think you can do a lot with them, and they're quite versatile and low density, not like some of the other buildings which are all like 2-story or something already. And also making this little back alley here where the garbage and stuff can be stored for the buildings, and that's also something that I try and think about a lot, is whether there's garbage storage for all these shops, because when you remove the props and things, you kind of forget that that stuff was there originally, or that there was something there, because it's not always the same. But I just try and add some dumpsters and things around the back to make it seem a bit more believable as to where they store all their rubbish and stuff, and also putting down some decals up there too to try and make it look a bit more rundown. And now putting some curbs in and a few smaller autumn trees and just filling up the rest of this area. And soon I'll move over to working on a park to just try and break up from all the monotony of the houses and stuff. Once I kind of fill in this little spot with a few of these American eclectic theme houses, it seems. I've been in this area. I've been trying to move away from using them. I use them a lot closer to the center of the city in the kind of what would have been the older suburbs that are all stuck to a particular style, but here I'm trying to use less of them and use more of the European suburbia houses to kind of change the building style as the city has grown at different times, and different building styles also kind of built at different times too. And here I was just using the forest brush to put the trees in, and I actually found it a lot easier to do it that way than place them all individually, as I have been doing in the past episodes. I think I started using it last episode, and I found it quite helpful, and I've also used it to do basically all the trees outside of the city too, so basically replacing what was there, which was a whole bunch of vanilla trees, with fall trees, and also using Prop It Up to quickly change some of the vanilla trees that I had not yet deleted into something else. The ones I have touched with Prop It Up don't look that great because they're all just one single tree, but it's kind of in the distance and hard to see. And closer to the city, I've used Forest Brush to create a more mixed variety of fall trees, so it doesn't look all one color and kind of makes sense and in the same style as these newer suburbs that I'm building. As in the past, I was using basically just the maple fall set to build the inner suburbs, as I kind of hadn't really gone out of my way to find any more fall trees. And now that I have, I think it looks a lot better, as there's a bit more variety and less monotony amongst everything else. And this is the last little bit of this area before we go across the railway line to work on the other area, where I'll be building a school, as well as a few smaller parks to kind of fill in odd bits of space that didn't really have any other real use for houses and things. As they sometimes get these odd spaces, and just have to work with them, like this one here where I'm just filling it with trees because I found it the easiest thing to do, because it's not quite steep enough to do the retaining walls like I have done in further down the railway line, but it's also kind of too steep and too close to the railway line to really fit in any houses or anything. And here I'm also working on some other road layouts for the next part of the build today, and just making some dead-end streets to kind of have that new suburb feel about it, because when you get new suburbs, they usually don't have connecting streets, and it's very, very much car oriented, and you can't really walk anywhere. You just have to basically force to drive around the whole block just to get to the person who lives behind you or something. And I'm also placing down a school in this episode, as we needed one. I placed down another high school in a few episodes ago. I know that much, I can't remember which one it was. And yeah, just making sure that all the needs of the city are being met, including education as well as power, as we have done in the last episode. And I plan on also working on water and sewage sometime in the future as we try and finish up this project. I'm not exactly sure how I'm going to go about finishing it up. I might actually just kind of call it that for the city and reach a point at sometime in the future, not after this episode, but at some point in the future, just kind of reach a point where I decide that the city is basically done, and I can basically just come back and work on some more rural areas if I feel like it, and then upload those to YouTube as kind of just a random thing to take a break from any other projects that I'll be working on in the future. which on that note leads me to talking about what I'm going to be releasing in 2 weeks' time. So I'm going to take next week off because I just simply don't have enough videos right now to be able to release weekly, and it's Christmas, and so in 2 weeks' time I'll be releasing an overview thing of map making. I was hoping that it would record, but my laptop can't run the game very well as recording in the quality that I prefer to record in, so that didn't really work out. So I basically built this map with the intention of releasing how I built it, but that didn't work out, so I'm just going to record some cinematics and talk over that and about the map that I've built and the potential for a new series sometime in the future. And after that I'll be returning to Hunterville to work on some more stuff in that city. Those episodes were actually recorded before these ones, but I just kind of decided to release them in this order as I felt like taking a break from Fairview for a couple of weeks, and also when I recorded this I was feeling really inspired to work on this project, even though I kind of had to call it quits and return home for summer. But I just really wanted to share these ones with you because I feel like these are quite a step up from previous Fairview episodes, whereas a little bit of a noob. I mean, I still am a bit, but less so now than I used to be. And just working on these suburbs, more shops and things along here to kind of barrier off the industrial area from the houses and things. I do have the no pollution model, whatever it's called, enabled, but I think there's still noise pollution. I think it's only for ground pollution. I honestly cannot remember. I'm just rambling on about some stuff now. But I decided to buffer those areas off and also put in some parking here, as I feel like this area needed a lot of parking for some reason. Maybe for workers, maybe just to kind of make it more realistic, as a lot of places have a lot of parking. And just putting this warehouse or factory or whatever it is on the corner, as I didn't want to put a house there, and trying out some different houses along this road and just plopping them down. And you'll notice that with those houses, some of them have vanilla trees and bushes and things, and I just go through with prop it up after placing all the houses down, and off camera I remove everything that I don't want, which includes the vanilla hedges and trees mainly. I think that's all I usually remove from houses and stuff, unless there's like awkward fences and things that are in the way, but there's usually not a problem. And just doing some vanilla houses and more European suburbia ones as well, to try and keep a little bit of variety in this area, and just plopping down and stuff. And soon you'll see that I work on a little park in between the area in the middle, as there wasn't quite the right amount of space to just divvy these up all into sections. So I decided to leave a little bit of space where people can walk in between, and hopefully improve the way that people get around a little bit. It still doesn't connect to the other road, but as I said before, some of these suburbs don't in modern developments. That's pretty much it for the episode, so if you've enjoyed this one, then make sure to leave a like. If you haven't subscribed to my channel already and would like to, then you should go ahead and subscribe. Thank you for watching, and I hope to see you in the next one.